Hey everybody, how's it going? So there's a lot that the UK appears to have been doing that the United States has not been regarding the coronavirus response, and I think the UK has got a lot of things right. One area where I think this is going to cause a lot of nightmare and conflict is there does not appear to be any sort of moratorium on evictions in the UK, and you can see where that is playing out here. So here it says, dogfight looms as landlords start suing restaurants over unpaid rent. Industry Insider said the number of rent disputes between commercial property landlords and tenants hit 200 this weekend. And it is quite interesting because in these times, everyone is being asked to sacrifice, and everybody is sacrificing something. My customers who have lost their job are now not able to pay the bill. I have less business walking in the door because people are telling everyone, don't go outside, stay inside to prevent the spread of a pandemic. So that means that my staff has less money. I have less to pay out to people. I have less income coming in. My customers have less money to pay their bills with. They may not have a job anymore. But the one class of people that are not being asked to sacrifice anything are the landlord class, which I think is quite interesting. And what this landlord said here is very, very telling. A spokesman for Into, which is fighting for survival, said, "We have neither the desire nor the financial capacity to bankroll global, well-capitalized brands who have just decided they don't want to pay rent." Yeah, they just decided they didn't want to pay rent. It's not that there's a global fucking pandemic. It's not that there is a viral disease that is literally killing tens of thousands of people that is causing governments to mandate that businesses stay closed. They just woke up that day and just said, you know what? Let's just not pay rent. We have record profits. We're making more and more money day after day after day, just for no reason. Just for no reason. We just want you to pay our business, pay our bills. And this is very manipulative language. They're asking us to bankroll their brand. No, they're not. Is the restaurant asking you to pay their staff? No. Is the restaurant asking you to pay their supplies? No. Is the restaurant asking you to pay for any of their kitchen tools? No. Is the restaurant asking you to pay for their maintenance? No. The restaurant is simply saying, due to my inability to open the space that I'm paying you for, I'm not going to pay you for that space that I cannot access. It would be as if I send my customer back a device and they paid me for a repair, and then they try to turn it on and the shit doesn't work, and they say, I can't pay you for it. It's just, it's insane to me that every group of people, everybody, universally, are being asked to sacrifice in these times for good reasons. But there's just like one group of people that's like not even one fucking month of rent will go unpaid. Like they say that they're fighting for survival. Maybe you shouldn't be renting out properties that are ridiculously highly leveraged. And there's one comment here that I would give a thumbs up to. So right down here, it says freeze rent, leveraged landlords can go bust. If highly leveraged, it's not like they bought the place anyway. They were just taking a risk-free punt on someone else's money. And you're going to see what happens here. There are going to be places where, they actually own the property that they're renting out, where they're actually a landlord, that are going to get through this. And then you're going to see people or large companies alike that figured, I'm going to make a quick buck by being a landlord off of borrowed money, and they're all going to get screwed because they were trying to make money off of other people's money. I reject this idea that every group of people is supposed to sacrifice besides the landlord. The landlord is one of those jobs where it's always been, fuck you, pay me. You have a concussion? Fuck you, pay me. Hurricane Sandy and Irene happened? Fuck you, pay me. There is a global viral pandemic going on that is causing tens of thousands of people to die so that the government mandates people stay at home? Fuck you, pay me. And what's interesting here is when they say that, they are paying for a space and they're still getting the service of the space. Let's be real here. Let's be 100% real here. When I was paying about $5,300 for that little hallway on First Avenue that I used to call a store, that little 650 square foot hallway, I was not paying for the space. I was paying for the ability to make money. Any of you who are watching this video who wonder to yourself, Lewis, why are you paying over $5,000 a month to rent a hallway when I pay $900 or $1,800 a month on a mortgage for a 3,000 square foot house? I'm not paying for the space. I'm paying for that space's ability to bring me business that will bring me money. If I have that little 650 square foot hallway in Custer, South Dakota, and it cost me $1 a year, I would make less money than I would paying $5,300 a month for that space in First Avenue and 12th Street in New York City. The reason is because I'm not paying for the space. Because it's space. I'm not paying for 500 or 700 square foot of space. I'm paying for that space's ability to bring in customers and bring in money. That's why you're able to to ask the commercial rents that you are. That's why you're able to ask for $90 or $120 or $200 a square feet rather than what people are used to paying for standard residential apartments. Every single time I've spoke to a broker for one of these spaces and said, you know what, it seems kind of weird that it's $4,000 for a space the size of my bathroom, or hey, that's kind of weird that that's $20,000 for a space that's about 2 times the size of where I am now, they would say the exact same thing. You're not paying for the size of the space. You're not paying for the space. You're paying for that space's ability to bring you business and bring you money. That is why a space that's the exact same size and same condition, 1 block closer to the train station, can cost you $5,000 or $10,000 more money in New York City. You are paying for that space's ability to bring in revenue, bring in customers, and bring in business. But the moment the space is no longer able to bring in customers and bring you business, now the contract changed, and you're not selling me the space's ability to bring in customers, you're selling me the space in and of itself. Oh, you have tables still there? Oh, it looks like you still have your cash register there and a couple of chairs? Well, I guess you're still using the space, so you have to pay the full $20,000 or $40,000 a month for a space that is the size of a fucking garage in the middle of Custer, South Dakota. The space that you're selling doesn't have that ability anymore. It's not doing what it was advertised to do, which is allow those commercial tenants to make money. So why is it that when their restaurant is not able to make food, people are not expected to pay them, but when your commercial space cannot be used commercially in the same way that it was before, you still expect 100% of the commercial rent that you got before? That's bullshit. I understand the idea that landlords have bills to pay too, but you have to understand that different landlords are going to have different bills to pay based on how they chose to purchase their properties. If you bought your properties using lots of leverage, then you are not going to be able to offer people even 1 month of forgiveness on rent because you have debt up to your eyeballs that the banks are then going to call in if you are unable to service that for even 1 month. And it's not our fault that you chose to leverage up to your eyeballs in order to purchase properties that you should have never owned to begin with, under the idea that it was going to work because people were just going to keep paying more and more and more and more rent month after month after month. It's not our fault that your model is not even remotely sustainable. And if you hear them saying, well, this is why we went out of business, no, it's not. Look at Into Properties over here. You were worth over $300 a share in 2015, and before coronavirus was ever a thing in Europe, it was $40 a share. This company lost almost 90% of their value before coronavirus was ever a thing, because this is a badly managed company with an unsustainable business model. And what they're saying is, because we have a business model that seeks to use money that we borrowed to make more money without having to put in actual work, we want you to be the ones that sacrifice instead of us. And I'm going to say no. Here's the way this is going to go. You could go to your tenants and say, listen, we're having a hard time right now. Everybody's having a hard time right now. How can we compromise? What do you think is fair? Even if you're not sure what's going to work now because we don't know where this is going to go, over the next few months, can we set up days or times where we get together and we try to figure out what's going on? And I'm not going to hold you at anything you say right now, but where do you see this going? And when do you think you're going to be able to pay again? What do you think you could do in the meantime? Or behind door number 2, the landlords can go to the tenants and just say, hey, yeah, I know that there's like a 90% drop in business and that this commercial space is like lost 90% of its use to you due to a global pandemic, but fuck you, we expect full rent anyway, pay us, and then they get nothing. Because the thing is, if you walk in there with the approach of, listen, we know things are bad, I get it, I'm not going to ask for the whole thing, but like, can we work together to try and figure out what can work for both of us over the next few months based on what we all come to believe is fair? Then you actually have a chance of getting the money. But if you seek to evict the tenants, if you try to freeze their bank accounts, they're just going to move their money elsewhere. They're going to open up new businesses, and then you're not going to get any money at all. And I think that this is ridiculously short-sighted, because you have to understand, and I'm sure that Alan Rosinski at Metro Manhattan Office Space would be more than happy to go over this in some of his videos right now, that it costs a lot of money to get a commercial tenant. You have to give the commercial tenant a couple of months of free rent, or you have to set up the space according to their specifications. You have to pay an attorney to go over a lease. You have to set up the space and, clean everything out that the old tenant had in there. You have to have the space on the market for several months, if not several years, to get the right tenant. And if your space is $5,000 or $15,000 or $25,000 a month, that means you're probably going to be losing out on $200,000 to $300,000 to find a new tenant. That's a lot of money lost that doesn't have to be lost if you're not so short-sighted and greedy. I think it's better to lose out on maybe 1 or 2 months of rent over the long term by not being short-sighted in your thinking, rather than be short-sighted in your thinking and say, I want it now, and evict your tenant, and then because you were so focused in the short term, me getting my rent money on April 5th, that you lose out on 1 or 2 years of rent. Because this is not the type of economy that we're entering into, where you're going to have people just lining up to rent all of these stores. As I went over in my New York real estate series when I was looking for a store, many of the places that I were looking to rent had been empty for years before I went to rent them. The place that was on 235 East 4th Street, it had something like 4 or 5 different restaurants in it that all showed up, failed, showed up, failed, showed up, failed, with vacancy that the landlord was not getting paid for in between each and every time. The store that I was looking at on 30th Street had been vacant for over a year before I went to take a look at it, and it is still vacant today. I didn't rent it because the super and the managing agent were both pricks. It takes a lot of time to find a tenant for a commercial space. This is not just like some cheap apartment. There are places right now that are vacant, that were vacant back around August of 2011 when I first started looking for a new store location, before I moved into my old store. So I went back to a lot of the locations that I was looking at in 2011 where they said, yeah, well, maybe, but we're not really interested in you as a tenant. Like, they're still empty. They've been looking for a tenant for 9 years. And that was when the market was doing well. Do you really think at this point in time you're going to be able to find another tenant that's going to pay $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 a month for these spaces to be used as a restaurant or a bar or a hair salon? No, you're not. Stop being short-sighted and work with the fucking tenants that you have, rather than doing this short-sighted bullshit. Because again, you can do all this short-sighted bullshit, you're going to wind up with 0 tenants for your spaces. And if you are indeed highly leveraged, then you are going to go bankrupt because you decided to be a bunch of greedy pricks rather than work things out and compromise with your customers. I have had to work things out and compromise with my customers. I've had to work things out and compromise every now and then with my staff members. There are many people who work here who are getting paid to either not work or work from home and do half of what their old job was. There are repairs that we'd usually charge full price for, where if it was considerably easier than expected and the person fell on financial hard times, I'll work with them on the cost of the repair. There are mail-in items where it's been sitting in my return to sender shelf for several weeks and at some point several months now, where instead of recycle it and send out that notice, we're just going to let it sit there a little longer than usual because I understand that it's not these customers' fault that they're not able to pay right now. I'm not going to pull out some shit like, I have neither the desire nor the financial capacity to bankroll a well-capitalized individual's machine in my shelf just because they decided out of the blue they don't want to pay. When you work for a company that has over 500 million pounds in revenue per fucking year, and you say shit like this, you are just asking for the people on r/breadtube to start sharpening their guillotines. This is not the energy you want to be putting out into the world. You don't want to be the company that people remember 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 fucking years from now, that on the 5th, the day that rent is due, you decided to say, oh, global pandemic? Don't care. Suing you, destroying your company, fuck you. This is not the road that you want to go down. And honestly, it's not even the road that's going to lead you to getting the money that you're asking for to begin with, because you're trying to take blood from a fucking stone. And if you had half a clue, you would realize that before you started suing these companies. We're all willing to compromise. Everybody in this pandemic is willing to some extent to put aside their short-sighted petty grievances and say, let's try to work together a little bit. landlords are going to have to do that as well. And you know what? There are some really fucking amazing landlords out there that are just miles from my apartment that are doing just that. In this New York Times article, this Brooklyn landlord just canceled rent for hundreds of his tenants. Mario Salerno, who has 18 apartment buildings, said he did not want renters to stress about their payment during the coronavirus pandemic. Mario said in an interview that he did not care about losing rental income in April. My concern is everyone's health, he said. This is not a guy that's running some sort of publicly traded multi-billion-dollar corporation. It's not like he's doing this for PR, because this doesn't strike me as the type of person that cares about PR. It's just someone who actually owns the buildings that he claims to be a landlord of, and since he is not paying to own those buildings with other people's money, he is not going to be screwed if he misses out on 1 or 2 months of rent. But further, he understands that if he tries to evict every single one of his tenants, then he is going to be stuck in a situation where trying to get a little bit of money right now means that he loses 6 months or 9 months or 18 months of rent over a longer period of time, because it does take time to find a tenant for an apartment or a commercial space. People like Mario are people that understand the times that we now live in. He understands that everybody is making sacrifice, everybody is trying to make do in a crappy situation, and that being short-sighted is not going to get you anywhere. So it doesn't seem like this company over here understands that at all. Yeah, a spokesperson for Intu said, which is fighting for survival. We have neither the desire nor the capacity to bankroll global capitalized brands who have just decided they don't want to pay rent. Fuck you, Intu. Fuck you and your organization and your spokespeople. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something.